Hey everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel SummarizedAI. As part of this video, we are going to talk about requests. It is one of the most important library we have in Python. Request library allow us to communicate with external services. We can send HTTP request to another website, APIs or servers. In simple terms, think of the request library in Python as a messenger that goes out from your computer to another website or system, asks for information, and brings the response back. Let's take one more example. Imagine you want to talk to a company's customer service system. You ask a question, they reply. You request a change, they update. You order something, they save the record. You cancel something, they remove it. APIs works exactly the same way. And the Python request library is your telephone. It lets you send and receive data systems like Google Maps, Facebook, and your own backend server. If you want your application to talk to Google Map services, YouTube, weather services, or any online services, you need to via send a request or receive data. As part of earlier FastAPI blog, we have created multiple APIs to list all users, get user, post user. We can create a user, we can update a user, and we can delete a user. So this is the library we created using FastAPI, where we also implemented the Pydantic, cookie session management, Uvicorn. Now, as part of this video, the API what we created earlier, we access this particular API using the Postman. So if you remember, here we created a Postman and we were saying, give me the user. Okay, if we give that, it allows us to give the user. Now, if I try to add a user, it helps us to add the user here. Okay, and if I again get it, I'm able to get the user. But all these things, getting a user, adding a new user, or updating a user having an ID of 21, okay, or deleting a user, all this we were doing with the help of Postman. So Postman is a tool which allows us to make the APIs call. Okay. Now, as part of today's blog, we are going to make same API calls using request Python library. It allows us to make the HTTP call and get the response. Great. And as part of this video, we have also checked one more thing or implemented, I would say, we created a login functionality where we were logging using username and password. Okay, we were generating the session and cookies. And if your session is valid, if you're still logging, you were able to access the profile. Okay, so if I try to access it, it is saying unauthorized. But as soon as I log in, okay, I got logged in. Okay, after logging in, if I try to access the profile, I was able to access the profile. Okay, and the cookie was getting stored in my Postman. Okay, or whichever browser we are accessing this API, the cookie will get saved into that particular browser. Okay, and we implemented the logout also. So suppose if you have logged out, okay, so it said logout successfully. And again, if you try to access this particular profile, it will again give you an error because you are not logged in user anymore. So let's go ahead and see how we can access or create the system where we can access these APIs. Great. Now let's create one file quickly and say request underscore one dot py. Okay, let's go ahead. And before starting this implementation, let me call out one thing. To go ahead with the request Python library, you have to install this in your local. Now to install this particular library, request library, you can say pip install request, and it will allow you to install this particular library in your local. So let me open this, clear the console, enter. I'm already having this particular library, but I'm just installing for the sake of walking you through how we can install the same library in the local. Great. Now, after installing this library, you can say import request. Okay, because we wish to use this particular library and the whole blog is around this request. Great. Now, as you know, when we were accessing the APIs, we had bunch of methods: get, post, put, delete. Correct. So get method is to get the information. Post method is to post the information. If you wish to send some information from your machine to some other machine, okay, and you want to save that information there, you can use post. And you have update also. You can use put method to update the information, and you have delete also if you wish to delete something. Okay, so similar to that, if I go back to my Visual Studio, if I say request.get, okay, request.get, and get will ask for the URL. So here we have the URL from where we were accessing the information. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to check one test API which we have created. And why we are doing that? Because my API URL here is /hello, and the mic is a parameter, URL parameter. Okay, so let's see how we can call this particular API. So I said call this particular URL, get the data from this particular URL. Now, if I say print, and if you wish to see like if I'm calling this particular URL, how the request is reaching out to the server and how server is processing that request and returning the response, you can go ahead and check my earlier video on FastAPI. That will provide you the complete overview. And because earlier we have covered this part, backend server, we have created the API using FastAPI, but here we were using Postman, which is the tool. Okay, but now we are implementing this as part of the Python using the request API. Great. Now, if I say print, and before say print, let me collect this particular response in a variable, say response, and let me print this let me clear this. You see, I got the response 200. It is giving the 200 code. Now, if I say response dot, if I say response dot JSON, let's see what it says. Okay. See, it is giving me the data. Response.json equal to message. My name is Mike. Okay. Now, if I say here JSON underscore response, okay, then we can say response.json so that we converted our response, whatever we got from here, in the JSON format. Okay. Now, as you know, we are having this particular response in a JSON format. Okay. We can simply say message, and it will give us the message name is Mike. Okay, and in place of Mike, if I say Jack here, we are having this name is Jack. Now, this is like how we can call the get API. Now let's start our actual implementation here. So as we discussed, we are going to get all the users, okay, using users API / users. And if I send the request, yeah, it is returning me two users at current point of time. So copy this URI here, and if I paste this thing here, it will give me the users in a JSON format. Now let me go ahead and print this JSON. So you see, I got this complete JSON array. All the users it is returning to me. Now if I say for user in JSON underscore response, okay, and here if I say user, it will print the object one by one because we are looping through array. So this is one and this is second. Now if I say user this ID, it will give me the ID. Okay, and if I say name, it will give me the name also. Let's see that also. So if you see name, we are able to fetch the name. So this is how we can call the get library, get API, sorry. Now let's go ahead and create one more file underscore 2.py just to post the information. Or before posting, I would say let's go ahead and get one user. Okay. So currently we are able to get the information of two users, but we have an API here which allows us to fetch the information for that particular user. And for that, we have to pass the ID, user ID. Okay. So I'm going to say here, first of all, user underscore ID equals to, I'm saying 1. Okay. And to pass that particular user ID, I can say here user underscore ID. This is a variable. Okay. And let's format it because we are using a variable here. It will give me the JSON, and response JSON is going to be having is nothing but user. And if I say user ID and this, I will get it because this is not an array. This is the object what we are getting. Let me clear this and run this code. See, I got the ID and the name of the user. But if I print this particular JSON, you can clearly see I am fetching only one user information based on the ID. Now, if I change this ID to 1, 2, let's see what happens. It says the ID is not there. Okay, so we have to apply the check, but let's see like what ID user is available apart from 1. So we have 2, 1 here. Okay, so if I go back in place of 1, 2, if I say 2, 1, yes, we are able to get the user. So this is a variable, and based on the ID, this particular API will return us the response. Great. Now let's do one thing. Let's create one more file which says request 3. Okay. And for this API, what we're gonna do here is we are going to save the user information. Okay. And as we know, here we have the user object. So let's get this user object, and our API, as you see, it is expecting the JSON in this format. It is a post request, and this is the URL. Okay. So let's go ahead and let's go back here. So we have this particular thing here. The URL should be here till /user. Okay. Because our API is /user. Now it is expecting this particular JSON format. So let me go ahead and copy paste this JSON here, and I'm going to say data. Okay. This is no more required. Now after getting this, I can say my ID is this. In place of Mike, I have Robo, and the age is 45, and it's Chicago. Okay. And the password is QRWQWERTY. Okay. Now, as we know, we have the data. Okay. And we also know the request was post. So we have to make a change and make it post here. Okay. Now it will be a post request. Now, once you post, okay, and you have to pass the data also with this particular URL. So what you can do, you can say JSON equal to data. Okay. Or I can say in place of data, I can say user. Okay. Let's say user. Now this is done. Now let me go ahead and simply print the response. Great. Now if I run this particular set of code here, see, it got created. Okay. If we are getting this particular response code as 201, which means this particular user got created. And to see this particular thing, we can go back and run this particular code where we are getting all the users. Please run this. And you see we got 1 Jack, 2 1 3 Robo. Okay. And let me go ahead and remove all this and just print the user information so that it will be clear. Yes, we have 3 users now with us. Great. So this is the way how we can post the data, okay, to the server, and server will be able to save it. Great. Now, you would be thinking like we could have saved, sent the data with the get also, but The problem with the get here is you can only send the data with the get with the help of URL. In the URL itself, you have to pass that particular data. Okay. But there is a limit. You can have a certain limit of URL. Okay. If you have more than that, okay, I think it is 10, it's like 1048 KB or MB, it's allowed. Okay. If you're going more than that, okay, then it will give you the error. Great. Now, this we cannot do. So that's where, as part of the post, we are sending that particular data in the body. Okay. Now let's go ahead and we can look into the update. If you wish to update something, how we can do that. Great. And for update, we know we require a put request. Okay. So we have to pass the ID of the user for which user we wish to update the data, and we have to send the updated data. And in the response, it will return you the updated data. Okay, great. So let me go back and copy this and paste it again, and let's rename 4. Now here I'm already having a data of 31. I'm saying in place of robo, you can say robotech. Okay, in place of 45, you say 54. And for Chicago, say Phoenix. Okay, and in place of query, you can say TEDxGB. Okay, great. Now, data we are already passing here. In place of post, you can say put. The only another thing is required the user ID, for which user ID you wish to update this data. So if I'm passing the user ID as 1, it will update for 1, but I wish to update for 31. So here, if I go and say slash user underscore ID. Okay. Now let me do one thing. Okay. You are already seeing here. Oh. And let me show it again also. Sorry for that. So if I go here, you see, I'm able to get the data of 3 users. Now let's go ahead and change the data. So this particular data, what you're seeing, it will completely get changed apart from the ID. So I ran this, it says 200. Okay, the data got updated, and to access the data, I can directly say JSON. But if I will be running again, say it will be updating, no problem. The data got updated. So the received data is Robotech age 54 and this. And if I go back to my get call, again get the user's latest information. So you see here, the detail got updated. And this is how the update work. If you wish to update anything, you are going to use put method. Okay. Now you would be thinking one thing. Okay. Let me take a break here, and you would be thinking like how I'm thinking which URL is required and which URI we need, what URL parameter we are going to pass. Okay. What would be the format? So for that, API team will provide you the format. They will provide you the complete documentation. They can have the Swagger also. Swagger is one of the, I would say, the format in which they mention what kind of JSON we are expecting in this particular JSON, what should be having, what is the URL, what is the method type, okay, what we are expecting as a URL parameter or the query parameter. Query parameter we will be discussing later. So all this information will be there for each and every API. So whenever you are going to integrate with any API, you will get that particular information there. Okay, great. Now let's proceed further and let's see how this delete API works. Okay, so if I rename this to 5 and it's see how delete works. So delete is very simple. You just have to pass the ID for which you wish to delete the data, and in place of put method, just say delete. Okay. Now let me go here and clear everything and just say response. Okay. Now, if I again call this, it will show me the data of 3 users. But if I go back here and I wish to delete 31, let's go ahead and click. It says 204. 204 is nothing. It tells the user got deleted. And this particular code we can set at the time of giving reference from the API. So API will be returning this particular response, and this response will tell you, yes, the data got deleted. And it depends API to API what they're returning, but they will let you know as part of the Swagger or the document they're providing what we are going to return. You have to check that particular condition if you wish to check this particular user or the information got completely removed or deleted. Great. Now it got deleted successfully. What we will do, we will go again into the API where we are fetching the users. Now, if you see, we have only two users. Great. Now, this was all about how we can fetch the users or get particular user, add user, update information of a user, and delete user also. Cool. Now, the next scenario, what I'm going to discuss is the login, logout, and accessing profile scenario. So, suppose I have a system. In that particular system, I have to log in before accessing that particular information. Okay. Now, for login, we require login ID and password. Okay. If we provide that login ID and password correctly, and after that, if we try to access an API, it will give us the response. If in case we did not log in or provided wrong login ID and password, it will say you are not authorized. Okay. And we have logout also. We will, which we will also see after logout, we will clear the session so that if again logging out, if someone accessing the profile, it should give an error. Boss, you're not the authorized one. You have already logged out. If you wish to access this particular information again, please go ahead and log in and then try to access this particular information. Great. Let's go and create a file here. We can say login.py. Okay. Now in that login.py again, you can import request. Okay. After that, you can say request dot post. Okay. So if I go back here, when I tried that login, you see I have a post request which is having this URL. And you see after question mark, we have key value pairs, user ID equal to this and password equal to this. So this user ID password is nothing but it's a query parameter. And every parameter gets separated by n%, and the query parameter gets start after question mark. Okay. So if you wish to provide any query parameters, just say question mark and give the key value pair. This is key, this is value. And if you have multiple key value pair, multiple query parameters, give n% in between. If I have more, I can give n% and I can say like ABC equal to DEF. Great. Now, what will happen if I will try to log in? Okay, then it will create the session for me. Okay, it will create a cookie in my browser so that whenever I am going to make a request, okay, whenever I'm going to call any API, it will by default, or we have to attach this particular session ID so that it will get to know, boss, you are already logged in. You need not to provide login and ID password again and again. Just provide the name, key, and the value this to the server. They will be able to identify you and provide the response. Yeah, so this is a kind of key to get the further information once you're logged in. We will see all this information one by one. Not a big deal. It's a very simple. It's just a fact we know or don't know. Yep. So let's go ahead and say request.post, and let me go ahead and without any confusion, let me copy this from here and just get it here, request.post format and this. And here I will create a user ID equal to 21, password equal to ASD123. Okay, so it is 21 and it is ASD123, which is correct. Excellent. Now we have this password, and because this is alphanumeric, we have to keep this in double code. Okay. Now this should be a variable for sure because we want it to be a dynamic for every user ID, and the password is going to be password. Okay, so it will be reading from here user ID and password. Great. Now, once you make this call, it will give you a response. Okay. Okay, I have to define the response. Sorry, yes, the response. So it will give you the response. Great, excellent. Now let me clear everything and run this. It says 200, which means we are successfully logged in. Let me say .json also here. Okay, so say it says login successful. Okay, and 200 code is also coming there. Now, once we are login, okay, now let's create one more API which says profile. Okay, so we wish to access something once we are login. Okay, now if I try profile here, so this is my profile here somewhere. Not this one, not this one, not this. Yeah, this one here, get. So this is my profile, only get method with the URL. Great, excellent. So let's go back. It's a simple and straightforward. We don't require this anything. Here we can say directly get. Okay, and quickly here we can say this. That's it, done. Let's try to run. See, not authenticated. It is saying not authenticated because I do understand you logged in here successfully. Correct. You logged in here successfully, but it required that particular session ID. Okay, and that session ID you are going to have in your cookie. Okay, so you have to read that cookie and pass that particular session ID. Okay, so if I go back to my profile and here, if you see what session it created, it said, let me go back to login. Yeah, it says session underscore ID 21 underscore session. Okay, so I'm going to say cookies equals to double code session underscore ID. Okay, and then if you see here, one underscore session. So this is the one, correct? Session underscore ID and 21 underscore session, but in our case, it's a one underscore session. Great. Now, let me quit this first. Now, if I go ahead and try to run this again, not authenticated. Why? Because if I go there and check my logs, it is saying my session ID is this. So this is my server, what I'm running, FastAPI server. So it has created a session. Session is ID is 21 underscore session. Okay, because we logged in with 21 as a user ID. Yes, correct. See here. So that's the logic we have written on the server side. So here we can say this. Now after this, if I try to access, it's again said the same thing. Okay, so let me check quickly where I'm wrong. So session underscore ID session 21 underscore session. Okay, great. Oh, I did not pass this value here. Oh my God. So we have to pass the cookies, okay, so that it will get reached to the server. So if you see here, when I was passing, I was getting none. Okay, now if I run this, it is saying welcome 21. We are able to log in. Okay, and here, if you see, it printed 21 underscore session because it reached. Previously, it was reaching as null. So now it got reached. We are able to access the message. Okay, and if however time if I will click on this one, it will be giving me the response. Now let's implement the logout. Okay, let's go ahead and duplicate this login only and say logout. Okay, now for logout also, you have to tell to the system like which user you are. So for that, whatever you are having here, just copy this and go to the logout. And logout is nothing but the post request again. And here you can say logout and pass this cookies. Okay, so what is happening here in the Postman when you are calling logout? So your Postman itself will pass the cookie, okay, inbuilt by default. But here, because we are writing code, we have to pass that cookie, okay, from which the session got created. Now, once you pass this particular cookie and try to log out, it will log you out. So let's see that. Yep, if you click log out successful. Okay, see here it is saying once I clicked log out successful. Now, if you again try to log out, it is saying not authenticated because your session is already cleared. It is not there. That's why it is saying non-authenticated. Now, if I go ahead and go back to my profile, let me close everything and it may make you confused. Let me open only three. If I again go to profile and try to fetch the information, okay, see what it says. It says not authenticated. Okay. Now, if I again log in with this user ID and password, login successful, access the information. Yes, welcome, welcome. Okay. Once you logs out, log out successfully. Now try to access. It's saying not authenticated. So this is how we can use API to, create or authenticate ourselves. And using this authorization, we can access the APIs, and it will allow us to access the information from server. Yeah. So this is all we have with respect to the request Python library. Thanks for watching this video. If you found this video helpful and want to see more video on AI and Python, don't forget to like and click on notification bell icon to stay updated and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video. Till then, bye bye.